So President Trump has lost his patience with Putin and is ending Joe Biden's appeasement, and that is the subject of the riff. In today's dramatic press conference with NATO head Mark Rutte, President Trump made it very clear that he has lost patience with Putin, believes Putin can no longer be trusted, and is now arranging a significant sale of Patriot missiles to NATO, which will then send them over to Ukraine. Basically, we're sending the weapons and the Europeans are going to pay for them. Ukraine will be rearmed in a significant way, and perhaps that will finally bring Putin to the negotiating table. Putin made a big mistake trying to play Donald Trump. He can't do it. After 3 or 4 ceasefire-related phone calls, or who knows how many, Putin then goes back and starts bombing Ukraine's civilians. That's an absolute no-go for Mr. Trump. Now, once again, here's how Mr. Trump put it at this morning's presser.
How did you tell Putin this was coming?
I speak to him a lot about getting this thing done. And I always hang up and say, well, that was a nice phone call. And then missiles are launched into Kiev or some other city. I go home, I tell the First Lady, I spoke to Vladimir today. We had a wonderful conversation. She said, oh, really? Another city was just hit. At a certain point, ultimately talk doesn't talk. It's got to be action. It's got to be results.
Yes, good for Melania. Anyway, Trump made it absolutely clear that he wants the war to stop and that he inherited Joe Biden's war. Trump believes, and I'm sure he's right, that Putin just waited for Biden to come into office and then he invaded Ukraine. Certainly, Biden's decision to flee from Afghanistan had a lot to do with Putin's decision to invade Ukraine. And we can all remember how pathetic Biden's response was as hundreds of thousands of Russian troops amassed on the eastern border of Ukraine when Biden then said, and I'm going to quote, don't, end quote, don't, which, as one wag put it, is what you say to your dog who's pulling a sock away. Don't didn't stop Putin, and nothing else Biden did stop Putin. And Biden's appeasement with Iran didn't stop Putin, nor his appeasement with China. Trump is really the first president since Ronald Reagan with an effort to check Russia and its grandiose empire ambitions. Mr. Trump also announced a 100% secondary tariff on Russia, but not for 50 days. Personally, I think it should be much shorter, period. Also impressive was NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, a former conservative prime minister of the Netherlands and a Trump friend and ally. But even more than that, the NATO countries agreed with President Trump to seek defense spending of 5% of GDP, which will send a strong, tough message to Vladimir Putin's phony ambitions. More than any time I can remember, the U.S. is now working in tandem with Europe. Now, there will always be differences, of course, but interestingly, in response to a question on tariffs, Mr. Trump reiterated his 30% EU tariff proposal, but clearly suggested that it was a work in progress and trade negotiations are continuing. By the by, both the stock market and the dollar rallied over the course of the Trump-Rutte press conference. More than anything, Mr. Trump wants peace, not war. He tried to negotiate with Putin, but didn't work out. He has inherited a war that would never have happened if Joe Biden were any kind of a strong president, but Biden was a weakling, an appeaser. And Trump has to pick up the pieces and end this Russian problem. If the United States and the NATO countries of Europe do act in concert, new weapons and all, it will mark the first major show of strength against the dictator Vladimir Putin. And it's high time that this happens. And that's the riff.